Alright, so recently I posted a video where I put together a custom PC build for Tarkov, tested it, and then posted it for sale. I had a lot of fun with that, so I'm going to be making it into a new series. So today I'm going to be putting together a budget beast build for Tarkov. One of my longer term goals is to start a PC building business. I've already sold a few and would love to continue providing quality builds and tuning services for the gaming community. So I hope you'll stick around and join me for this build. This one's already up for sale on Java, and here's the listing. So here are the specs on this build. The motherboard is an MSI B550M Pro. We've got an AMD Ryzen 5 5600X paired with 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM rated at 3200 CL16. For graphics, I'm going with the PowerColor Hellhound 6650 XT. For storage, I've got a little compact Micron 2400 M2. Powering it all is a 700 watt EVGA BR PSU. And the whole thing is going into a classic NZXT H510 Elite. I've always loved the clean Stormtrooper look of this case. So I started off by dropping in the CPU. All you gotta do is raise the retention arm, drop it in, lock it back down. Then went in the RAM, 2 sticks lined up with the notches. There is a certain orientation you have to put them in. Just make sure you seat them fully and you hear that click when you lock them down. Next up is the M2 drive. It's super tiny and doesn't line up with the default standoffs. So after I finished the build, I 3D printed a little bracket to secure it in place after the build was done. Next, I popped the IO shield into the back of the case and dropped the board in by mounting it to the standoffs. I tightened it all down and it's secure now. Then came the front panel connectors, the power switch, HD audio, and the USB connector. One thing to note, this board doesn't support the case's USB-C front port, so that's not actually functional in this build, but you do still get a working USB-A on the front. You could easily get a USB add-in card and add that functionality if you really wanted it, but for this build I'm looking to keep a low cost and high performance ratio. Next, I installed the Hellhound 6650 XT, lined it up with the PCIe lane, added the power connector, and fastened it to the case. So later on I found some white cable extensions I had lying around, and I added those to give the build a little more visual pop. Then I mounted the pump block onto the CPU and plugged the pump into the CPU fan header. Now I guess I somehow forgot to hit record when I mounted the AIO radiator to the front, but the radiator with the fans are kind of a tight fit in the H510 Elite, so it wasn't lining up well. I ended up repurposing the stock AIO fans as the rear and top exhaust instead. I think it worked out pretty well. It looks pretty nice and the thing stays cool when it's running. After that, I consolidated all the RGB into the NZXT controller and tidied up the case wiring a little bit, then closed it up. Visually, I think it gives off a nice high-end aesthetic, so I'm pretty happy with it. After putting everything together, I booted into the BIOS to set my tune before jumping into testing. First, I tweaked the PBO2 settings. I set a plus 200 MHz boost clock override, which lets the chip boost up to 4.85 GHz when there's enough thermal headroom. Then I added a -20 offset on the curve optimizer to help it stay efficient and cool under load. Since I'm tuning this rig specifically for gaming, I also disabled SMT and C states, which both can help reduce latency a little bit. Next up, I enabled the XMP profile on the RAM, 3200 CL16. For AM4 CPUs, it's best to run a 1:1:1 ratio between the memory clock, Infinity Fabric clock, and the unified memory controller clock. You'll usually see these notated as M clock, F clock, and U clock. So I manually set F clock to 1600 MHz and forced the U clock equals M clock setting. Also, resizable bar was already enabled on this board by default, but that setting can vary depending on your board, so I'd check it manually if you're following this along. In terms of temps and noise, this build surprised me in a good way. At idle, using the default fan curves, the whole system is basically silent. I can barely hear it unless I put my ear right up to it. The CPU sits just under 40 degrees Celsius and the GPU hovers in the low 40s. Really good numbers, it's nice and cool. In-game, the temp stayed in check as well. I ran Tarkov at 1440 FSR 3.0 balanced with medium textures. Looking back, I probably could have pushed it to quality mode and gotten the same FPS. But either way, the GPU stayed in the mid-50s, maybe broke 60 for a second or two, but mostly hung around the mid-50s. The CPU hovered in the mid-60s during raid and really didn't go past 70, even after I raised the boost clock to 4.85 GHz and undervolted it. So yeah, really solid thermals, especially for a tuned CPU. And if I were to bump the fan curves a bit, I could trade some noise for a few less degrees. But honestly, I like where it is. It's running cool and is quiet. Overall, I'm really happy with the thermal and noise profile of this build. Once everything was put together, updated, and tuned, I jumped into a raid on Streets of Tarkov to see how this thing really performs in-game. This rig is ideal for high textures at 1080, or with FSR, it can hold its own in 1440 as well. I ran it in 1440 on FSR 3.0 balanced using my Pure 70 preset, which is my optimized medium graphics settings. Now, going in with 16 gigs of RAM on streets, I was honestly bracing for the worst, but this thing held up way better than I expected. It was chugging along just fine, averaging around 70 FPS with some dips in the heavier areas, but nothing that ruined the experience. I would have been happy with the stable 60 FPS on streets, but it outperformed my expectations. Gameplay felt smooth overall, and the only noticeable dips were when new AI or scavs were spawning in. I never felt like I was at a disadvantage due to performance on streets, and that tells me this rig will handle every other map even better. If this is the floor, then the rest of your sessions will feel even better. What really impressed me is that you're getting this kind of performance on a true budget build, and with only 16 gigs of RAM. This build came together very nicely, and I think it just looks really clean with that white on black Stormtrooper aesthetic. So again, this one's up for sale on Jawa right now. If you're looking for a 1080 or 1440 build that won't burn a hole in your wallet, but still punches way above its weight in Tarkov while looking good, check out the listing using the link in the upper right hand corner or the links in the description. If you're thinking about building this rig or something similar, I've dropped the full parts list in the description as well, with links to everything I used. That's all I've got for this one. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you found it helpful, please consider liking the video and subscribing to Purology. It really helps support the channel and lets me keep making content like this. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.